switch to English and introduce Ted Neward, our first speaker at .NET and C# session. Let's welcome him with the ovation.
Thank you, Anna, and I'm glad you switched to English, because otherwise the only way I would have known to start talking was when everybody starts looking at me.
Thank God I thought of it.
Yes, thank God you thought of that, because my Polish is terrible. Absolutely.
Can you say anything in Polish?
Can I say anything in Polish? I can't say anything, I can't say something, I can't say nothing.
Okay, just one word. Give
One
us
word.
just one word.
Vodka. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Turn in your evaluations, because it's only going to get worse from here. How many of you, just out of curiosity, have played around with F# before now? How many of you have heard of F# before now? How many of you think this is a class on music? Because if you do, I can't help you. Because not only do I know no Polish, I know absolutely, you should hear me sing and smash windows. It's bad. It's really bad. Just out of curiosity, how many people in here write code for a living? Yeah, how many people in here try to write code for a living? All the people in the back who raised their hand the first time are like, yeah, I write code, you don't. You suck, I win. What I want to do with this particular presentation is basically, as we say in the States, I want to make you dangerous. There is no way that I can teach you the F# programming language in 60 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever we have left. This is a full-out programming language with every bit as much depth and richness and different ways of thinking as C#. Anybody who claimed to teach you C# in 60 minutes lied to you. I'm not like that. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to teach you just enough of the syntax so that you can recognize when you're looking at F#. I'm going to teach you just enough of the concepts so that you can understand why people are getting interested about this, why Microsoft decided to include this in the box as part of Visual Studio 2010, and so that you can go and pick up a book, pick up an article, go to a training class, something similar. And most importantly, when your boss comes to you and says, hey, what do you think of F#? Is this something that we should be looking into? You can say basically one of two things. You can say in your head, if I say yes, the boss will ask me to do it and my resume will get stronger and I can make more money. Yes. But realistically, what you want to do is you want to understand where this language fits in sort of the grand scheme of things and understand where and why this might be used, how it could be used. Because very frankly, using a technology the wrong way is as bad or worse than not knowing the technology at all. So that's essentially where we want to go. I want to show you a little bit of, like I said, the syntax. We're going to walk through a little bit of the Visual Studio integration with F#, just to sort of show you what's there. I'll tell you where to get it, which is pretty straightforward. You go to the Everything F# website, www.google.com. And you type in F# download and it will take you to some absolutely incomprehensible URL on the Microsoft website and you will download it from there. The most recent version is a September 2008 CTP, Community Technology Preview. There may be one more release, one more CTP. That's Microsoft's fancy word for beta. There may be one more release before Visual Studio 2010, what Microsofties are referring to as DevX or Dev 10 or something similar along those lines. When DevX ships in 2010, February of 2010 is the current estimated release date, F# will be in the box. There will be nothing else you need to download and install. But for right now, you have to go grab it, pull it down, install it, plug straight into Visual Studio. There's nothing else you need to do. Real quick, when you do new project, you can see that there's a Visual F# tab. And what we're going to do when we get to the code here is we're going to walk through this project type called the F# tutorial. Because this is relatively new, Microsoft has decided to include as a project template, essentially a tutorial project. For all intents and purposes, it's an application project that has some code there already for you to go look at. Okay? We'll get to this in just a second. The first question is, what is F#? It is an object functional hybrid programming language. What do I mean by functional? I mean that this programming language is actually useful as opposed to the dysfunctional programming languages that we've been using all these, sorry. That's a classic functional joke. It has to be done at least once in every presentation. It's a bad joke, I apologize, but there you go. There are worse functional jokes, and you will probably hear those too before we're done here. When I mean a functional programming language, what I mean, how many people have played around with language like Haskell, ML, Erlang? Yeah, that's pretty much the reaction I get everywhere. For a lot of C# and VB developers, the usual reaction is, wait, there's more than 2 programming languages? Oh, that's right, there's that C++ thing. I forgot about that. Right. The functional series of languages looks at a particular, this by the way, is Microsoft's new version of PowerPoint. It's very lightweight and agile. So, switching mics here for just a, whoa. This mic has power. When I look at an expression, how many of you did some kind of mathematics in grade school or university? Yeah? So let's go to the next slide here. When you see something like this, what do you think? Is that equation even remotely possible? I mean, think about it for a second. What I'm suggesting is that there is some possible way that if I plug in the value 4 for x, that 4 can equal 5. Now, if that seems to make sense to you, there is a job waiting for you at US banks. Believe me, they really need people who can do that kind of creative accounting. Now, in all fairness, right, those of us who've been programming in C# and Visual Basic and Java and C++ and C and Pascal and all these other imperative programming languages, we know exactly what is implied by that statement. We want to take the contents of the memory cell referenced by X. We want to extract those contents. We want to increment that value by 1 integer value. And we want to store that new value back into that memory cell identified by X. Child's play, right? This is not a mathematical equation. This is a sequence of steps to execute in order to produce some desired result. Now, the reason why this is not a real great way to think about programming is very simple. If I want to have 2 processing concurrent threads of execution, and they run across this sequence of instructions, what happens? I mean, how many people have done any sort of multi-threaded programming whatsoever? A couple of hands. There are actually a couple of people in the back going, yeah, I did it, and I'm traumatized. I don't want to remember. That's what therapy was for. How many people in here feel like the multi-threaded code that they wrote is 100% bulletproof, solid, there are no chances for deadlock? I don't even have to get to the punchline. You guys are laughing already, right? Most of the time when you sit down and you start working with multi-threaded code, what do you have to think about? You have to look at your code and you have to sort of imagine all the possible places that your code can basically fuck itself over. Right? I mean, think about it for just, yes, I used the word fuck. I'll do it again before the day is done. Because that's basically what's going to happen, right? You get 2 threads of execution to come through here, right? You in the lovely green shirt. Stand up for a second. What's your name? Matthew? Yes. Matthew, excellent. I want you to hold up a number on one hand. Hold up a number. 1, 2, 3, just not 1, okay? 2 is good. All right. Here I have the contents of the memory cell X, right? And I'm going to have a thread. What's your name there? Peter? Stand up. Peter is thread number 1. What's he going to do? He's